Hello.
And welcome to We're Not Blowing Hot Air, powered by Oxygen Plus. I'm Scott.
And I'm Lauren.
And we're here to help elevate your IQ on wellness and business stuff that's sometimes misunderstood.
Oh, like recreational oxygen?
Yes.
Let's get smarter with this week's guest of We're Not Blowing Hot Air.
Hey.
Hey.
How you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm excellent.
Are you saying that just because you're on a podcast and I asked you?
Yes.
Good.
100%. No, I'm good. I'm good. Do you know why?
It's not your birthday this week.
It's not my birthday this week. You're correct. I did breathing exercises this morning.
Oh.
I was going to ask you after our Charles Meekin episode, Dr. Charles, we made a pact to do like breathing exercises and have you been doing it?
I have. Have you?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Which ones?
I have. Wim Hof in the mornings. Not every morning, but just about every morning.
Me too. When I don't work out,
Okay.
I do a Wim Hof session.
Yeah. Okay. I've been doing it on workout days too, but it's just kind of like if I feel like I need a little extra boost in the morning, like a little extra wake up, right? I'll do that. So I've been doing that, and then box breathing too.
A 4-4, or are you doing like a rectangle breathing?
I'm doing a 4-4.
Okay.
I'm not the rectangle. Yeah, I've been doing a 4-4 breathing. So yeah, it's been working out. What have you've been doing Wim Hof?
Wim Hof, yeah, right. When when I don't do a hard workout like rowing in the morning, then I do Wim Hof for I do 4 rounds of it. Do you do more than that?
I do the most I'll do. It kind of depends. I'll do at least 2, sometimes 4 or 5.
Okay. And then this is my nose image that I have on my iPhone.
Oh, nice.
It's a picture of a nose I got off of our Instagram page and just added it to the screensaver on my iPhone. And I look at that frequently, and I have been catching myself not being in my nose, and it's been truly restorative. I'm still in the habit. I don't think it hasn't been the 30 days to form the habit yet, but I am noticing how much more aligned my spine is. I feel like I'm more connected to my diaphragm, and even that my balance is better, but that my jaw is more relaxed too. And I'm really feeling like just more of a centeredness with the nose breathing that I didn't know I didn't have before.
That's great. That's fantastic. So it's working.
Yeah.
How cool.
Nose breathing is the jam.
It is the jam.
We weren't blowing hot air.
We were not.
On episode 4 of We're Not Blowing Hot Air, our brain waves tune into the frequency of Dr. Patrick K. Porter, an expert in brain health and wellness, and founder of BrainTap, a scientifically proven approach for rewiring your brain. An author, speaker, and entrepreneur who is driving positive change and healing, Dr. Porter shares how to improve mental clarity, sleep, and energy through breathing and a daily 20-minute audio session that uses light and sound, guiding your mind from an awake reactionary state into an intuitive creative state of heightened consciousness. Dr. Porter's technology helps you more easily get some of the benefits of meditation and bust bad habits like smoking and stressing out too much. Tap into the power of your own mind and take a deep dive into hypnosis and the subconscious, and rock out with post-hardcore band Lost in Prague, all in this episode of We're Not Blowing Hot Air. It is an honor to introduce the award-winning author, educator, entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and the 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient of the International Association of Functional Neurologists, Dr. Patrick Porter.
Dr. Porter, you've been featured numerous times in the Wall Street Journal and Business Week. You've developed a widely popular and highly regarded brainwave technology product called BrainTap, and now you're the special guest on the We're Not Blowing Hot Air podcast. Welcome.
All right, welcome.
Welcome.
All right, great to be here. Yeah, thank you.
Most people probably ask you about BrainTap, how it works, its benefits. But before we get into that, maybe let's get a little personal. We'll roll it back a little bit and maybe talk a little bit about childhood. We understand your father was a hypnotist. How old were you, and what did he teach you? What did you learn from this?
Well, before he became a hypnotist, he was actually a Silva mind control instructor, which now they call it the Silva method because it sounds better than mind control. But
Right.
it was a meditation process, and he actually was a chronic alcoholic. So when he got help, because the elders from the church came over, Sister Mary and Father Fitzpatrick took him to a seminar that taught him how to relax. He came home and said, "Wow, if this is good enough for me, it's good enough for my whole family." There were 9 of us kids. So he went through that training. He started doing seminars all over Lower Michigan. And of course, we'd help set up chairs, and I've probably been through the Silva method at least 300 or 400 times. And then I started teaching it with him. But in the process of doing that, he said, "Wow, I really like this. He went back to school. And because he was a cereal worker, we were from Battle Creek, Michigan. So there wasn't a lot going on there, but cereal, we're known for our cereals. And so he was working there and he wanted to get out of it. So he went back to school, became a psychologist, but he specialized in hypnotherapy because he knew that he could get the most rapid results there. And so, and then of course I was never going to do what Dad did, but here I am, and part of what we learned was something, meditations using GSR machines, which means galvanic skin response systems. So you could actually put your fingers on, you can still get these on Amazon, by the way, for a couple $100. You put your fingers on them and you set it for, let's say, 10 cycles, which is alpha. It'll make a pulsing sound. And that sound, if once you turn it off, that means you're at that brainwave. So you can meditate. And as soon as you get a little anxious or you drop a little too low, it starts beeping again. So it's a biofeedback, there was no neurofeedback back then. And that really got me into it. And then because my dad, the voices I had in my head of my dad were not all loving and kindness. In fact, I jokingly say he used a lot of 4-letter words, but none of them were love. Because he was an alcoholic, he had his problems. But when he got better, I still was seeing him as alcoholic, not as this guy who got help. So he trained me to make my first affirmation tape that I ever made. For those that remember cassettes, that was a cassette player that would wake me up in the morning, and he would help me structure my affirmations. I would get up listening to my affirmations from the age of 12, and I still do it today. I still have a process of doing that when I go to bed. And my wife, we've been married now for 32 years. She's gotten used to hearing my affirmations. I said she can always add in hers, but she'd rather have just silence. So I have it just barely going over on my side of the bed, and I still listen to those affirmations every day.
So let me get this straight. So your dad made a turn from alcoholism in his life. His behavior changed. You were a child, impressionable, and so obviously needed more assurance, right? Like, and he helped you.
Yeah, I tell people that he spent an hour at a seminar, and he's now helped millions of people, because he helped me. And most of my family is involved in one form or another with the business of helping people. That's what we do now. So, and we find that that's not only satisfying, but we make a living at it. So that's good too.
Yeah, there's nothing better than being able to help people with your product and service. That's something that's why Oxygen Plus does what it does.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. And that's a fascinating story too. In overcoming something like that and ultimately helping people, helping you, and then you've taken that on and put that into your own work, and that's fantastic. So, obviously that motivated you and kind of shaped what you do with your career and your aspirations.
What happened to the other 7 children? Are they all?
Well, 3 of them work for me still. The others are in different groups. Some are in the medical world, helping people in that way. Yeah. But they all still do some form of, relaxation. They all have the BrainTap, of course, because they're family. But they all still practice. They know that if somebody gets stressed. In fact, my son, who's an IT person, but he married a psychologist, and so, but he was helping her through college when she was all stressed out. She goes, "My dad knows these techniques. Let me teach you this, in teaching her how to manage her stress." Even though he went more into the computer. My first degree is in electronics, so he took that route because I love electronics and all of that. Nothing like we have today back then, but it was more like CB radios and, you can't fix TVs anymore, but that's what we used to do back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And that's what was my first undergraduate degree.
Well, Dr. Porter, and do you want us to call you Dr. Porter or Patrick on this?
You can call me Patrick.
I'm going to do that.
All right.
Awesome. Patrick, are you, in addition to the Brain app technology, which do you use, by the way, yourself?
Oh yeah, I jokingly tell people when I'm asked, is it addictive? I said, I don't know. I've been doing it since 1986. When we invented the very first one of these models, we built it in the back office of my clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona. We made the first 1,000 there with Radio Shack parts. I've been doing it ever since.
So in addition to that, do you do other wellness techniques that help you with stress and other wellness?
Yes, for sure. I'm a big advocate of the heartfelt meditation. Daji, who does it, I've been over to India speaking in front of his groups. He's allowed me to speak in front of 25,000 people live, which is the biggest group I've ever spoken in front of. But India brings out the biggest groups. I spoke one time inside a pyramid that held 5,000 people in India, which was pretty incredible, pretty cool experience. But also, I do a lot of biohacking, if you want to call it that. We didn't know that then. I like the health optimization kind of better. It's a better word because some of our people don't like the word hack. But we've been doing this when I was growing up, actually. In high school, there was a guy named Yule Gibbons. I don't know if you remember him or even heard about him, but he used to do the Grape Nuts commercials. And so the big joke was when I graduated, I was going to replace Yule Gibbons in the Grape Nuts commercials because I was a 3-sport captain. I went from being a nobody really to being a 3-sport captain and getting a scholarship to college because of what I did with using my mind and visualizing. And of course I worked out, I physically worked out. I didn't just think about it, I actually took action. But I took a lot of nutrition. And my older brother, Michael, who still works with us, he's our educational director. He made me fill out my form, my workout sheet. And every week I would send him my workout sheet. If I did, he'd pay for all my supplements. So he was in the Air Force. So every week, this was before email, of course, so I'm mailing him this. So, and he's ordering all my supplements. And my coach, I still remember him saying, Patrick, don't let them see you taking those. They're going to think they're drugs because I was pretty fast. I was undefeated in the quarter mile when I was in high school. So these kind of things, they think you're doing something illegal if you're doing that. But basically I was visualizing it and eating I do a lot with nutrition to keep down my physical stress. I also use PMF, a lot of supplementation. I'm a big believer that we can't get it from the foods we're eating. We've got to supplement. There's just no way now, if anybody does any research, that we get it from. Even if you ate on all the perimeter aisles in every grocery store in the world, you wouldn't be able to do it without supplementation. So we do that. We call that actually the first wave of wellness. You can't outthink a poor diet. So I mean, people believe they can. They think they're like Saint Germain and they can smoke cigarettes and be healthy. You can smoke cigarettes, but you're not going to be healthy because the cigarette doesn't have a bad day. You do. So, you can do, what I always tell people is you want to minimize the landmines, which like eating sugar, not getting activity. The other thing is I always say, one of the things I do to reduce stress, or a couple things, is I like yoga. I was fortunate enough to train with Yogi Bhajan in Arizona for 5 years before I was married. I'd get up at 3:30 in the morning and do it. And so I still practice restorative yoga because I'm not as young as I used to be. And then I was fortunate enough, and I go to India all the time, so I get to work with a lot of the gurus and things over there and really understand that. But then I also have been to Wudang Mountain where Tai Chi was started. So I trained there for 30 days with the Taoist priests. I was in a Kung Fu movie, but I went through that with my kids. We did martial arts and became black belts because I wanted us to do something as a family and build that. It's also a brain training when you're doing yoga, some kind of Tai Chi, or even dance. So I tell people you got to move and breathe. So every day on my agenda is some way to move and breathe. If you don't move and breathe, get oxygen to your cells, they're not going to live very long. So we want to keep them in the healthiest state possible. So we believe that the second wave of wellness is physical fitness. So you've got to do that, but you can't, if you don't have the mindset. That's what we call the third wave of wellness. That's what we think right now. We're in the midst of revolution as far as wellness is concerned, because everybody's really concerned about the brain, especially as so many baby boomers are getting into that age where they're finding dementia and Alzheimer's is lurking. And there are a lot of things we can do. I like to inform people that, the ancient tribes didn't entrust the history of the tribe to the youngsters. They gave it to the elders. So that must mean that we're not supposed to lose our memories. We're supposed to have sharp minds until we decide to go on to the next evolution, whatever that is, or die, however you want to look at that. So I believe that we're now in a place where we got to do all three of these. If you can't just do one of them, like you can't just do your mind. You can have a good life, but if you're eating garbage, it's not going to work too well. And if you're not physically moving and breathing, that's not going to be good too. So you got to have all three of these lined up so you can live your best life now.
They say that, they don't teach mindset in schools and things like that. And do you think some of those other wellness factors, diet, moving your body and stuff like that, do you kind of agree with that? Like mindset should be taught in schools and those types of things should be taught in schools and there should be more emphasis put on that? How do you feel about that?
Oh, yes. I think that we should take out all, basically, first, let's start with nutrition. They've got it all wrong because they're letting the milk and dairy industry control what's talked about in schools. They're letting money dictate what's being taught, not science.
Amen.
The science
would big amen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The science would be, let's get rid of all the sugar in the school systems. I mean, when you let Coca-Cola put in soda machines, which is probably the bane of our existence, probably the worst thing that has ever happened to the planet is soda pop. And I drank my share of it when I was younger, but that's the worst thing. And so I think that number one. Number two is we should be learning proper physical fitness. They're taking that out of the schools today. My grandkids don't have physical education. I went to school. I went to a Catholic school, so we had phys ed for an hour. We had recess. We got to move, right? And then obviously they're not being taught. People nowadays are being taught what to think, not how to think. And that's part of the mindset. They call it the dumbing down of America, unfortunately. So what we're talking about here, when a Harvard instructor that's been teaching critical thinking for 30 years gets fired because he wants them to apply critical thinking to what happened in 2020, we've got a real issue. We've got an issue with people controlling our planet. So we need to teach, the mindset should be nothing is true until you prove it's true for you. Just like a biohacker would do. I'm not going to take any supplementation unless I can verify it with my heart rate variability, let's say, or my WABI BrainTap, or whatever we're doing. There's ways to measure and improve. And what they're doing now is they're saying they're actually rewriting history. So people aren't even learning anything at all. 100 years ago, the average person ate 5 pounds of sugar a year. Now the average person eats over 100 pounds a year. And they're wondering why we have
5 pounds to 100.
Wow.
5 pounds to 100. Do you happen to know, Patrick, how many ounces of cheese a human eats in a year?
No, but I'm scared to know, but let me know.
Yeah.
So it's 40.4 pounds of cheese, 2019 fact from a random Google search.
40.4?
It's statistica.com, actually. 40 pounds of cheese, 100 pounds of sugar, and we are not healthy. Our brains are weak in general. I mean, not us. Scott and I, we do breathing. We're serious about nutrition, and we move. I couldn't agree with you more. And I love Dr. Porter. I mean, sorry, Patrick. We're on that first name. We're old friends. I love, Patrick, that you have never, or like, I can't say you never deviated, but you have part of your approach in developing what your product is now and all that offers is rooted in a holistic wellness. I think that's important for our listeners to know that it's about your life. It's about your own best life. And this is part of a tool they can add to their toolbox. Yeah. And we would love to get more into what BrainTap is. I will say that the sleep app, which won an award in Men's Health magazine as one of the best sleep apps. We'd love to hear especially about that, because I believe that you said in one of your previous talks that there was that we used to sleep 2 times longer than we do now. And I think that's phenomenal to think about and consider. So let's maybe start with sleep, but talk about how the BrainTap app works.
Sure. First, let me throw down a little stats for your listeners. They did a research study with NBA players. These are all world elite athletes. They had them sleep 1 hour longer. You wouldn't think that would have any difference in how they play. These are elite players. They improved their free throw shooting by 10%. Their free throw shooting by 10%. Their 3-point shooting by over 10%. Their completed passes by over 15%, just by getting 1 hour sleep longer. And these are elite athletes. So what could we do? So 100 years ago, again, we would think, gosh, what would happen? We were sleeping 12 hours a day. So that's the average person. But if you think about it, we had to burn candles then. There weren't as many light bulbs. Now we just turn on the lights and leave them on, and our brain doesn't know that night has started. Our night used to be watching a crackling fire. When the fire went out, we'd go to bed, we'd wake up at sunrise, and everything worked great. So what happens is that throws off our circadian clock, right? And the circadian rhythm isn't just in our brain, it's in every cell. So every cell has an intelligence. They call it, there's a cell danger response, which means the cells of our body do what they're supposed to do based on the light they're receiving. So we are light sensitive. So when you think about, every cell has something they call chromophores, which means that it's a battery. So think about it like every cell has a battery that absorbs light, and it absorbs red and blue light primarily. That's why we use red and blue lights with BrainTap. And the reason it does that is those are the most precious light at sunrise and sunset, because they signal different indicators to our body. The one at night tells our body to start making melatonin. So if we're not in bed before, let's say 8 to 2 o'clock in the morning, so it's a wide span that you can go. The sooner you're in bed, the better. I'm not going to go to sleep at 8 o'clock. I mean, I went to bed at 9 o'clock even in school. So I'm going to, I might stay up to 10:30, 11, but I'm going to get my 7-8 hours sleep, whatever you need. When you're doing that, what happens is you're going through different cycles. So I'm going to just talk just for a minute about brainwaves. So there's 4 primary brainwaves we talk about, and there's a 5th that's just coming on the scene that's very popular called gamma. Maybe we'll get to that later. But where we're at right now, we're in a state called beta. That's our reactionary mind. When somebody has a problem sleeping, they're locked into that reactionary mode. So their brain can't shift gears. It can't downshift, in other words, like a car would. It's more like a standard transmission instead of an automatic. Those people that sleep well, they just downshift. They then go into alpha. Alpha is a time where you're going to be in an intuitive space. You're also going to start creating, and by the way, in beta, you create dopamine. So that's why we have all these dopamine addictions, that everything is driven by dopamine and we get addicted to it. And if you wonder if you're addicted to dopamine, send a text to a family member. And if you don't get a response right away and you get anxious, you probably have an addiction. Because as soon as you get that response, you go, all right, they love me, and you start texting them back. So, but when you get into alpha, you start to create acetylcholine. This is also a feeling that gives you joy, and that's why we get this restorative sleep. So we're going through this cycle. We go down into theta. Theta produces GABA. GABA is a precursor to DMT. Our brain produces its own DMT, so that gives us our dreams. So when somebody's taking the molecule DMT, that's because our brain has receptors for that, and we have these out-of-body kind of experiences if you've done that. But we do that every night when we sleep. And then we hit delta. When we hit the deepest levels of delta, that's when our brain actually detoxes. So in 2016, American Scientific came out in their journal and said, we now have the glia lymphomic system. Now, we've always had a lymphatic system. For those out there that had physiology in school, everywhere there's a blood vessel, there has to be a lymphatic vessel. It's kind of like Disneyland. You don't see where the trash goes, but it's underneath the city, right? So in our body, we have this trash. Basically, the lymphatic system works like the trash man, takes out the trash, and it's next to every blood vessel to do that. But in the brain, it works differently. It stays closed, just like we lock out nutrients from the brain. They call it the blood-brain barrier. We also have this with the glial lymphomic system, but only when we're in level 4 sleep does this get released. Now they're showing there are some supplements that can release it now. There's also like lymphatic massage that can release it. They're finding new ways to do it because we have to detox this brain of ours, because just the everyday use of our brain, every cell unfortunately has to poop, and that stuff has to go somewhere. So if it's clogged up, we're going to have foggy brain, poor memory, poor concentration, poor sleep, because the brain is thinking, I've got to stay busy. I guess, but what it really needs is to release that and dump it. Now, it only does these in microbursts. So when you get these, what they call delta bursts, you also get on the other end of the spectrum a gamma burst. Now, gamma is associated with high spiritual experiences, high creativity, breakthrough thinking. So that's why we get those breakthroughs when we sleep. Some people get these prophetic dreams and things like that. But that cycle, it doesn't only happen once, it happens up to 8 times or more at night. Now, if it's happening less than that, then people don't get the proper amount of sleep. And so we need at least an hour of deep sleep, 2 hours of REM sleep. If it combined is about 3 hours, we knock it out of the park with our sleep scores. And I just posted mine from last night. I had a 92 sleep score and a 93 recovery score, which is kind of hard to do with a BioStrap. But we do it every day.
You wear a BioStrap, or I wear an Aura ring.
Aura ring's the same thing. It's really good. You can test it on there too. Just do your heart rate before and after.
Yeah, okay. Most people, is it quality? And so most people, when they go to sleep, they may be in bed for 10 hours, but they're not sleeping. So
that's what we found. Yeah.
How do we get the quality with the quantity sorted out?
Well, it starts actually with breathing first. When you're in bed, I always recommend people do the 4-8 breathing when they hit the pillow. And because when you breathe in, your audience might know this already, but when you breathe in, you're triggering the sympathetic system. So we're exercising the nervous system. When we breathe out to the mental of 8, we're exercising the parasympathetic system. While we're breathing, we can do a body scan. What most people do is they think they're supposed to go to sleep and black out to the world, but really we need to prepare our bodies for sleep. So it starts about an hour or 2 before sleep, but when you have to turn off the lights, set mood, don't watch the news, things like that. But as soon as you get in bed, that's your time to prepare your body. Think of your body like a capacitor. In electronic circuit, a capacitor holds a charge until a preset point. Some people clench their teeth when they sleep. They wake up with their hands in a fist. They basically have been fighting all night long because they never unwound their body. They never unwound their nervous system. And breathing is so key to that. So when you do this breathing technique and you scan your body, most people find they don't make it up to their hips maybe after they practice, but some people will get all the way to their head. If that happens, what I say is then you start to do a review of your day, because nobody's been trained really to process their day. If you process your day, you're going to have a phenomenal memory. You're going to wake up with happier and healthier than ever before, because if there was a positive experience, if you can accentuate it by making it a little brighter, stepping into it, reliving it, really honoring that positive moment, maybe when you hugged a loved one, or you got a gift, or you got a call from somebody, whatever made you feel joyful that day with gratitude. We know that when we measure HRVs, if we have people meditating or visualizing gratitude and love, that phenomenal things happen on their HRV. This heart that we have that has a brain in it, it has 4,000 neutrino cells. It actually controls the show. That's why there's more heart attacks on Monday morning than any other day of the week. It's communicating with this brain up here. So when we're doing that at night, we're setting it up. Now we're setting up our dream sequence. Any negative thing that happened, we have to do what's called a reframe. What a reframe means, in my book, my first book, I've written 9 of them, but my first book is Awaken the Genius. I have a chapter in there that says, I was blessed to be the son of an alcoholic. Not that I felt that way when I was 11, but when I look back, as Steve Jobs says, all the dots connect looking back, not looking forward. So if you can connect the dots, so a reframe means I had to have that experience to bring me to this moment in time where I could be on this radio show, proving to people that I'm not just blowing hot air, right? So all these things happen. And so when I'm at bed at night, if I had a negative experience, or maybe I acted out of character, or I lost my stuff, all those things, I can replay that in my mind and make it a lesson learned. Because if I don't learn from that experience, it's not just a cliche that says if you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to relive it. Your brain sets up the behaviors. It says, wow, that's the way you respond. But if you reframe it, it doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. So we can train the brain to process the day. And as you train it, what will happen is your unwinding sequence will have you reviewing your day, remembering all the positive experiences, reframing the negative. Now you go to sleep feeling good, feeling positive, feeling grateful. Now your dreams are going to be filled with much more joy and love and satisfaction. You're going to wake up with more energy, and you're going to get those good deep sleep scores on your aura ring like you want.
And look
That's
at
typically
you
the way it
said,
works.
look at the HRV, the heart rate variability before and after it. So when you go to bed and in the morning,
Yeah.
that's the last piece of the sleep protocol you're
Yes.
talking about.
Mm,
Okay.
yes.
Now the
And
other
it's not,
thing.
it's,
Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's not uncommon if you had a stressful day, that your heart rate variability might go down, but you should be able to, especially through breathing techniques, bring it back up to whatever your norm is. And then we always try to get people to 80 plus, and their HRV score, whether it's the Oura Ring, BioStrap, or we even have our own device it's a clinical device that measures these things, that gives us a score from 0 to 100.
I'd love to get into that. Is that BrainTap?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into BrainTap. But one maybe piece of warning, a word of warning I want to maybe put out there that you could talk about, Patrick, is the setting of the alarm before you go to bed. Can you,
Yeah.
because that was really striking to me and it so resonated.
Right. So
our
when
listeners
there's something called anticipatory stress, right? So sometimes it can be even positive stress, like the anticipatory stress of a wedding or an anniversary or something like that, and you're preparing for it. That's usually called eustress, which is good stress. But there's also negative stress that we anticipate. So you set your alarm. Let's say you set it for 6 o'clock. You know that alarm is going to blare in the morning. It's going to rock your world. It's going to put your nervous system on red alert. And then you're going to try to figure out where you're at. You don't give your body any time to adjust or acclimate to this space and time. And what happens is, from that point on, your nervous system has to realign. And this throws off the brain, because it's basically putting you in high alert. It's turning on your sympathetic system when we really want to wake up gently. So what I recommend is either no alarm at all, which is the way I do it, or at least change your alarm setting to some music that is positive, something that motivates you in the morning, whatever your song is. Like, if a band woke you up to your favorite music, what would that be? And don't put it on such a high setting, and just condition yourself to wake up. There's ways you can do that, but if you wake up the way you wake up, there's people that say, oh, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed or whatever. No, you woke up on the same side of the bed. You just maybe had a bad dream before you woke up, or something triggered your emotional state. We live in such a wonderful world that we can set our intention every morning by the first thing we hear in the morning. So in my case, I'm going to get up and do my affirmations are playing, right? They're always playing. So if I wake up at night or I wake up in the morning, I can just take a moment, own those affirmative statements, basically load up all the motivation I need for the day and go get after it. That's the way I feel.
So what I'm taking from this is I most likely should not set an alarm, and it's okay if I'm late to work because of it, because I'll be in a better mental state. Is that what I'm?
Yeah. That's the first thing. Deepak Chopra actually has a really good way to figure out how much time you really truly need to sleep, but it takes your vacation to do it. So when you're on vacation, you don't have to wake up to anything. Go to sleep at your normal time. The worst thing you can do is get off your body clock. But go to sleep. If you're used to going to bed at 11 or 12, whatever time it is, go to sleep at that time. Let yourself unwind. Wake up at your time. But as soon as you wake up, jump out of bed. The problem most people have in the morning is they look over, they go, oh, I can squeeze 10 more minutes in. Then you start another cycle. And if you wake up in a down cycle, you will never get energy throughout the day.
That has been my only problem with sleep.
So if you wake up in an up cycle, even in the middle of the night, you will have more energy than you ever thought possible, because sleep, it's not about time. It's about quality. The US military proved you only need 4 hours of sleep in battle time conditions. So if you're not in a wartime experience, you don't even need that much sleep. But we're so accustomed now, the best sleep, like I said in the study, is probably between 7 and 8 hours is best for most people, they find in our day and age. The average person is only getting 6. And 2 out of 3 people in America anyway aren't even sleeping 6. So we have a real issue here with sleep. And mainly, let's say you set that alarm and you're going to scare the crap out of yourself in the morning, so you can't even sleep deep, because you know at any moment you're in a timeless place where any moment you're going to be stirred. So what I would say is pick a piece of music. Don't have your alarm blare like pick a piece of music you like. And because if you have any smartphone, although I usually recommend not having the phone in your room either, this is something maybe we can share with them. We did an experiment. We took people's phones and we put it outside of the room, and we had them on a piece of equipment that measured EEG activity. Every time their phone in the other room dinged, their brain had a cortical response. So there was quantum entanglement between their electronic devices in their bed. So if anything, also turn your phone off, put it on airplane mode, and then you can use it in your room, because it won't give you the notifications. Cancel all the notifications, and then set it to whatever your favorite motivational song is. If I do have at times, like if I'm only going to sleep for 3 hours because I'm between flights or something like that, I usually play the Star Wars theme or something. So I feel like I'm going off to battle the Jedi, or be one of the Jedis, going out there handling the officers or whatever. I just kind of think of those kind of weird things just to set my brain up so that I'm motivated in the morning.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I've transitioned, not recently, but a while back. But I noticed when I transitioned from like a typical beeping alarm clock to my alarm is now kind of a mellow piano music that comes on. I do hate waking up less. I don't throw my smartphone like I wanted to throw my alarm clock when it woke me up. But I did notice that, and here's what's interesting though, and this is kind of backstepping a little bit, but I typically sleep like 6.5 hours. There are times when I don't sleep that long, and I feel like throughout the day I have a little more energy than the times that I might sleep that 6.5 hours or more. That's really interesting to me. And I think sometimes I convince myself that I'm in a bad mood because I didn't sleep the amount of time that I wanted. Like if I wake up a half an hour before my alarm goes off, if I really step back and think about it and go, I actually feel like I have more energy. So would that mean that I just got better quality sleep that night? Or maybe I did, the meditation before and breathing the night before that just put me in that state? I mean, what could I take away from that?
Yeah, I think you woke up in an upcycle, and you can program your upcycles. That's one of the things we taught in Silva. We call it weight control and sleep control. So you can visualize the time you want to wake up in the morning with energy, and your body will make it so, because your subconscious is always listening. It's saying, hey, what do you want to have happen in the next day of your life? It's always programming your future. So if you look forward to the morning of getting up, in fact, my wife doesn't set alarms either, but she'll set an alarm, but she'll always wake up before it goes off because she hates the sound of it. And so but she'll wake up. She loves her sleep more than I do. I mean, she likes to sleep a lot longer than I do. And, I can get by on 6 hours, no problem, just like what you're saying, as long as I wake up in an upcycle. So just kind of think about that. The way we would do it is while you're doing your meditation, like the night before, visualize that time in the morning, visualize you're full of energy, and then your subconscious will work out all the details. You don't have to worry about how that's going to happen. The subconscious knows.
Yeah. Okay. So I should feel okay about that. If I wake up at 5, but my alarm was set for 5:30 or something, then I should be okay with waking up that early.
You're in charge then, Scott.
I'm in charge.
Yeah.
If anything, I would get up out of bed and go sit in the chair, go do a meditation or breathing exercise, because you'll get more of that than laying back in bed. Because you're telling your body, while I'm in bed, I'm sleeping. And you'll condition your body to sleep the whole time you're in bed, rather than laying there wondering because you have a half hour left and waking up in the middle of that sleep cycle.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing, I hope our listeners take away, make your sleep cycle, the practice, a routine, make it a ritual, give yourself that love and that importance to do those things, to breathe, to do a body scan, and to not set your alarm in the morning, and really just program yourself mentally, and we'll get into the subconscious more, but let your brain start to know it's going to wake up in a way where you have energy for the whole day. So that's all on our own, not even with the technology that you've developed. Why don't you share how this is essentially a hack to helping you sleep and do other things better?
Right. What we found out back starting before even I invented the first MC square is what we called the first BrainTap, really, if you call it that. But what we found was that our bodies are listening all the time, and we hear over 25,000 pieces of information every second. But our brain is really good at filtering out the noises we don't want to hear. So if you were at a restaurant, let's say, talking to each other, and then somebody 3 tables over says, I just went to this breath class. You might go, whoa, you heard that, but you didn't hear the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, we have this thing called the reticular activating system, or they call it the primitive reflexes of the brain. And what it's doing is whatever's most important for you, it's listening in the environment for that. It's like buying a new car and you drive it off the lot and you see 5 or 6 of them down the road while you're driving home, but you thought you were the only one that found this car on the lot. Like they only made one, at the Ford dealership. So, but what happens is that the brain is listening. So because the brain is always doing this, what we had to do was we had to figure out how can we get a cortical response, which means a deep brain response from the subconscious part of our body. This is what we're calling the limbic brain. So we send a signal in. We do this in 4 ways with BrainTap. One is called binaural beats, one is called isochronic tones, one is called solfeggio frequencies, one is called Noget frequencies, and then you can also add in 10-cycle music. So we have these 5 ways with sound that we train the brain. Now, when we talk about brain fitness, we're talking about training the brain. So to give you an example, what we did with BrainTap, we did an experiment. We took 15 minutes of music, really good relaxing music. There's something called the Mozart effect. When you listen to this 10-cycle music, you're actually smarter. So we took 10 people in our pilot study, which is now a 150-person study at Valencia College in Florida. But what we did was we took the first 5 minutes, we got a baseline HRV. We also were measuring brainwave activity. And then we had them listen to the music. As expected, their HRV increased, their parasympathetic responded, their sympathetics reduced. All these things happened while they were listening to the music. After it was done, they went right back to their same brain state, no change. But when we introduced so for 5 minutes, we had a 5-minute washout, no change. We took that same piece of music and we buried in the background of that music our algorithm, which is the way we mixed this music in all these binaural beats and isochronic tones. It's a mix. It's kind of like mixing any piece of music, all the different orchestra pieces. We put that in the background. We found that, yes, they had the same kind of response when they listened to it, maybe a little bit deeper because we were encouraging them to go to alpha and theta. And then when it was done, what happened is exactly what we hoped would happen is their brain didn't go back. Their brain stayed at that level. It stayed in that optimum learning level. And what we found out is the halo effect of a BrainTap session is 72 hours. So it took 72 hours for the brain to go back to what it was like in the first place. So that's why we call it brain fitness. Now, if you interrupt that pattern and you keep practicing every day, it never gets to go back to where it was and we get a new baseline. We found that took 30 days. So 30 days of training, you can basically create your new mind that is operating at a peak performance level, whether you're doing it in the morning. So what's happening at night is when we also introduce light to the equation, this only happened in the 80s. Before the 80s, we could just use sound. But in the 80s, we could look at a candle. If you've ever watched a candle flicker, there's something called the Jyoti meditation, where you look at a candle and you do breath work. And while you're looking at the candle, you breathe out and the candle just kind of flickers. And while you're doing that, what most people don't know is our brain is designed to mimic or match all the frequencies in its environment. So if you and I were on my spaceship flying to Earth and we were to measure the frequency response of our planet, it would go from 0.05 to 100. So our brain would match that. If we're sitting by a volcano that's going off, it might be 100. If we're sitting in a dead zone on the planet, it'd be 0.05. If we're sitting by the ocean, it'd be 10 hertz frequency. If we're meditating on a mountain, it'd be 7.8 hertz frequency, the Schumann frequency. So our brain matches these. So what we're doing with the BrainTap is we're using light now. Everything in the known universe is light, sound, and vibration. Everything is really the same at the fundamental level of creation. Now, we make it look like tables. We give it edges. We give it computers. We send quantum particles across the internet. We show up as images on other people's computers. All of this is still light, sound, and vibration. So what we did is we mimic nature. I like to tell people we take ancient traditions and we make modern technology. So we took that candle and we said, wow, what if we took an LED that just came out in the 80s and we could have it flicker like a candle? Could we get the brain to respond the same way? Yes, but now you don't have to worry about your breathing. You don't have to worry about anything. The brain follows that. We call it frequency following response. It's actually a science that everything is entrained. I don't know if you've been on the internet and looked up synchronizing metronomes, but if you do, you'll find a guy starts 200 metronomes and they all sync within 3 to 4 minutes. Well, this is our nature. This is the nature of everything. If you have your hometown, you know, if you make this first light, you're going to make all the green lights as you go through, because eventually all the lights will line up. So the throughway will get all the green lights. They don't know why that happens. And then what happens is somebody in the town puts in another light. It throws them all off for at least a year. Within a year, they'll all be lined up again, and you'll be able to make all those green lights again. Our universe wants to be synchronized, and so does our brain. So what BrainTap does in the primary sense, the most basic sense, is we're going to balance the brain, guide it through a cycle of sleep, and then wake you back up. Now, if it's a sleep sessions like we're talking about now, we don't wake you back up. We take you down to delta, which is the deep sleep cycle. We drop you off. Then your body takes over the cycle. And then think of it kind of like training wheels for the brain, but we're training the brain to go through these different cycles. Our morning sessions, the way they work, we call it digital coffee because we're exciting the brain. There's a brainwave called SMR, sensory motor rhythm, that has to do with cognition and balance. We've actually proved that we can improve balance without doing exercise. Now, it works better if you do, but we wanted to prove that it's a brainwave issue, not just a muscular issue, because muscles do nothing on their own. Bones do nothing on their own. They need instruction from the brain to do all those things. So it all starts with the cerebral cortex, the central operating component of our brain. And so when we get all these different brain waves working in the right order, what happens is we can wake up when we want, we can sleep when we want, we can have energy whenever we want. The other way that it works to help people is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, every person on earth around 2 o'clock, their temperature will drop 2 degrees. This is just a natural part of our biological system. That's because every person on earth started in the Serengeti. Our genetics can be traced back to Africa, right? And what would happen around 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the Serengeti? We're not up running around in 100-degree temperatures. We're laying down next to the zebra, hoping the lion doesn't see us sleeping because we don't want to be dinner. And so our bodies are designed to take a nap at that time. What we've shown is if you do a 20-minute BrainTap session, you actually can reclaim over 40%, between 40 and 80% of the energy that you had in the morning. So some people respond better, but especially athletes. We have a professional soccer team, Kansas City Sport, that put in a 20-station brain tapping room because we showed them by using lymphatic drainage boots and a brain tap, they could reclaim over 80% of the energy of these pro athletes. And so they do it for recovery.
That's amazing.
Thanks for listening to part 1 of our interview with Dr. Patrick K. Porter. And be sure to subscribe to We're Not Blowing Hot Air so you don't miss part 2. Now, check out this episode's featured artist, Lost in Prague.
I try not to shout out your name when the cold starts creeping in on me, and I said all I had to say. I like the way you make me down inside every day. I can't believe I put up with these things every day. It's just as good as it gets. Living life full of regrets. this dread in my head on Sunday, not a fun day. I dug this grave for two. Looking back, this road is paved in shadows and memories of a better day.